Most people confuse movement with progress, and talking is the easiest form of movement. When you talk about what you plan to do, you feel productive without having produced anything. The mind doesn't distinguish well between imagined success and real success. Words create a simulation of achievement, and the brain rewards that simulation with a sense of satisfaction. That satisfaction is dangerous because it arrives early, before the work has been done, and it quietly drains the urgency required to follow through. When you announce a goal, you receive social approval. People nod, encourage you, maybe even admire your ambition. That approval acts like a premature paycheck. You haven't earned it, but you've already been paid emotionally. Once the reward is collected, the motivation to do the difficult, lonely work weakens. The task ahead hasn't changed, but your internal pressure to complete it has. You've traded real progress for a temporary feeling of progress. Talking also replaces feedback from reality with feedback from people. Reality is honest, it responds only to action. People, on the other hand, are polite. They comfort you, support you, and soften the truth. When you rely on conversation instead of execution, you begin optimizing for how things sound rather than how they work. You refine the story instead of the skill. Over time, you become better at explaining what you want to do than actually doing it. There is also a subtle ego trap in sharing plans. Identity forms around intention instead of results. You start seeing yourself as the kind of person who is working on something big, even if nothing tangible exists yet. That identity becomes something to protect. Any real attempt at execution now risks failure, and failure threatens the self-image you've already publicly adopted. So you delay, you polish the idea, you talk some more. The loop continues, and months or years pass with little to show. Silence removes this illusion. When no one knows what you're building, there is no performance pressure, no need to look consistent, no fear of embarrassment. You are free to change direction, make mistakes, and iterate quickly. The only scorekeeper is reality itself. This is a more demanding environment, but also a more honest one. Progress becomes measurable. Either something exists or it doesn't. The most meaningful work often feels fragile in its early stages. It doesn't want attention, it wants care. Just like a seed, it grows best underground. Talking exposes it too early when it cannot yet defend itself. Opinions, doubts, and comparisons seep in. Doubt multiplies faster than effort. By staying quiet, you give your ideas the time and space to become strong before they are judged. Eventually, real work creates unavoidable evidence. A product exists, a skill is undeniable, a result can be measured. At that point, words are no longer necessary. You don't have to convince anyone because reality does it for you. The irony is that when you stop talking about what you're going to do and focus entirely on doing it, people will eventually talk for you. False progress feels good now and costs you later. Real progress feels uncomfortable now and pays you later. The difference is silence. Silence is not the absence of activity. It is the removal of interference. Most people underestimate how much energy they lose simply by letting others into their plans too early. Every conversation pulls attention outward. Every explanation costs mental currency. When you are trying to build something meaningful, your most valuable resource is not time or money, but focus. Silence protects that focus by keeping your attention anchored to the work instead of scattered across opinions, reactions, and expectations. The moment you tell someone what you are working on, you invite their mind into your process. They bring suggestions, doubts, comparisons, and projections that are shaped by their own experiences, not yours. Even well-intentioned advice creates noise. It forces you to contexts which, to defend your thinking, or to reconsider decisions that were not yet ready for evaluation. This constant mental recalibration drains energy that should have been spent on execution. Silence acts as a filter, allowing only reality to influence your direction. There is also a hidden cost in managing expectations. Once people know your plans, they begin to anticipate outcomes and timelines. You start carrying their expectations along with your own. That weight is subtle but exhausting. Instead of working at your natural pace, you begin to work against an imagined audience. Your attention shifts from doing the work well to doing it in a way that will be acceptable to others. This divides your energy and slows momentum. Silence frees you from that burden. Focus thrives in simplicity. When your goals are private, your mind stays clean. You are not rehearsing explanations or preparing updates. You are not justifying delays or defending pivots. You wake up with a single responsibility: to move the work forward. This creates a state of deep engagement where hours pass unnoticed and effort compounds. Silence creates the conditions for this depth. Noise destroys it. Energy is also emotional. Every reaction from others, positive or negative, creates an emotional ripple. Praise can inflate ego. Criticism can inject doubt. Both pull you away from balance. When you stay silent, you remain emotionally neutral. Your highs and lows are dictated by progress itself, not by external validation. This emotional stability allows you to work longer, think clearer, and recover faster. Consistency becomes possible. The most ambitious goals require sustained attention over long periods. This is rare in a world optimized for sharing and broadcasting. Silence becomes a competitive advantage. While others are explaining, posting, and seeking reassurance, you are building. While they are reacting, you are compounding effort. The gap widens quietly. Silence also preserves optionality. Early ideas are often wrong. Execution reveals better paths. When your plans are public, changing direction feels like failure. When they are private, it feels like learning. You can adapt without friction. You can discard what doesn't work without explanation. This flexibility saves enormous energy that would otherwise be spent maintaining a story. In the end, silence is not secrecy for its own sake. It is discipline. It is the decision to protect your limited attention from unnecessary leaks. Focus is fragile. Energy is finite. Silence keeps both intact long enough for something real to emerge. In a world full of explanations, promises, and opinions, results are the only honest language. Everything else is negotiable. Words can be polished, intentions can be exaggerated, and effort can be claimed without proof. Results, however, are binary. They either exist or they don't. When you let results do the talking, you remove yourself from the exhausting business of convincing others and place your trust in reality instead. Most people try to win through persuasion. They explain their potential, defend their process, and justify their delays. This creates a constant need for approval and agreement, but persuasion is fragile. It depends on mood, timing, and the listener's biases. Results are durable. They don't need context or framing. They stand on their own and communicate instantly. A finished product, a mastered skill, or a measurable outcome speaks more clearly than any argument ever could. When you rely on results, you also simplify your life. You stop managing impressions. You stop rehearsing stories about what you're working on or where you're headed. Your attention shifts entirely to the question that matters. What will exist at the end of this effort? This clarity removes distraction. You are no longer tempted to substitute explanation for execution. The scoreboard is visible and honest, and it keeps you aligned. Letting results speak also builds quiet credibility. People trust what they can see. When outcomes consistently appear around you, your reputation compounds without effort. You don't need to self-promote because others do it for you. This form of trust is stronger because it is earned indirectly. It comes from evidence, not assertion. Over time, doors open with less resistance, not because you asked, but because your track record arrived first. There is power in being underestimated. When you don't advertise your intentions, expectations remain low. This gives you room to experiment, fail, and improve without scrutiny. When results finally appear, they surprise. Surprise creates leverage. It shifts dynamics instantly. Instead of being evaluated on potential, you are recognized for performance. This transition is where real influence begins. Results also keep you honest with yourself. It's easy to believe you're making progress when you're busy. It's harder to argue with an empty output. By focusing on what can be shown rather than what can be said, you expose self-deception early. This feedback loop accelerates growth. You adjust faster, learn deeper, and improve continuously because reality is always responding. Over time, this approach changes how you think. You stop asking how to explain your work and start asking how to improve it. You stop chasing validation and start chasing mastery. The work becomes the message. This creates a sense of internal freedom. You are no longer dependent on recognition to feel accomplished. Satisfaction comes from completion, not applause. Eventually, the irony appears. The less you try to be heard, the more attention you attract. When your results accumulate, people seek your perspective without you offering it. Your silence becomes intriguing. Your consistency becomes rare, and when you do speak, your words carry weight because they are backed by proof. In the long run, those who talk are remembered for their claims. Those who deliver are remembered for their impact. Let your work stand where words cannot.